Good evening to you at home once again. Welcome to a special expanded debate night edition of the 11th hour. This was day 1349 of the Trump administration. Just 35 days to go now until the presidential election. The first of what we still think will be 3 presidential debates for this 2020 campaign is now history, such as it is. Senator, thank you for joining us. My first question to you, what just happened?
Well, America was presented with a very clear choice. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who has experience, who has poise, who has grace, who speaks with intelligence, who speaks directly in the camera to the American people about their situation. And then on the other hand, you have an angry, defensive Donald Trump, who spent full time interrupting, attempting to bully the process, including the moderator. You know, when I watched the debate, I'll have to tell you, Brian, I couldn't help but think about the people around the world who are watching the debate. And people have mentioned it on this network just minutes ago, but what it has done in terms of, and what Donald Trump has done continuously since he's been in office, including tonight, to debase the office of the President of the United States. And that is our office. It's not his office. That's the people's office. And I think that the American people during this debate had a clear contrast in terms of what they've got and what is possible and what they can have if they vote. While Donald Trump, as Joe said, is also in court trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act that brought health coverage to 20 million people.
Did we witness dog whistle in real time when he said the following, quote, "If you were a certain person, you have no status in life"? It was sort of a reversal.
Brian, what we saw was a dog whistle through a bullhorn. Donald Trump is not pretending to be anything other than what he is. Someone who will not condemn white supremacists, someone who cannot say the phrase Black Lives Matter, someone who is getting rid of training of federal employees around the issue of race and the need to be aware of implicit bias. He's talking through a bullhorn.
Because parts of your home state are burning up, and because as part of my job I look at the CAL FIRE map of ongoing fires in the state of California on a daily basis, the president went there again tonight on dirty forest floors. He mentioned forest cities, not clear what he was talking about, put the blame squarely on forest management and not, certainly not, on climate change.
I mean, Brian, again, it's Donald Trump attempting to distract from his failures, including his failure to embrace science. I mean, even part of the question during the debate last night incorporated the fact that he said science doesn't know. I mean, Brian, seriously. The man was asked one time, well, science says this, and then the President of the United States says science doesn't know. Well, science does know. Science knows that we are facing a crisis in terms of the rapid changes to our climate, most of which can be addressed by changing and adapting in terms of our behaviors. Joe Biden offered a clear plan for not only what we need to do to save our environment and our climate, but what Joe's plan will do in terms of the creation of millions of jobs. And again, it's an attempt to distract from the fact that Donald Trump, on almost every issue that was discussed tonight, has had no plan. I was actually very impressed, not in a positive way, to hear that everything that Donald Trump talked about was what he was gonna do, as opposed to what he has done. Like, track the debate. I don't know how many times, I didn't count, he talked about what he's gonna do. He's been president for almost 4 years. And then when he feels like blaming anyone, he goes back to the prior administration and blames the prior administration for what he says its failures were, without addressing the fact that he's actually had no plan that has been about addressing some of the biggest challenges facing our country even before the pandemic. And God knows what he has failed to do because of his incompetence in dealing with the damage in terms of human life, in terms of economic harm that has resulted from this pandemic that he has failed to get on top of and to address in a meaningful way.
Final question, Senator. As you look forward to your debate with Mike Pence, Pence. It's been observed so many times they are such disparate figures. The president relies on hyperbole, and Mike Pence relies on what many have called a kind of straight-faced piety. He is still the head of the White House coronavirus task force. We are still in the middle of a pandemic, and the president, on Mike Pence's watch, is now seemingly getting medical advice from a radiologist from your home state.
There's a lot to unpack, Brian. Where shall I start? Listen, first of all, the president has denied science since he first came in office. I'll tell you, I served for a while on the Environment Committee of the Senate, and do you know that when Donald Trump and Mike Pence came into office as an administration, they took the word science and climate change off of various federal websites? We've seen actually a through theme in terms of their approach to science and fact, because, by the way, scientists are grounded in fact and proving fact. And there has been, we're seeing an administration, the Trump-Pence administration, that has been completely unburdened by fact. Senator
Kamala Harris, thank you so much for making time for us here at the top of the hour following that event, whatever it was that we just witnessed for 90-plus minutes. Greatly appreciate it. And
thank you.
And I am really had it up to here with anybody saying that there's some kind of false equivalency between these two debate participants. I thought Joe Biden, by and large, showed the kind of self-control that we used to define as presidential. I thought Donald Trump showed exactly who he is, a bully who is unmoored, who is chaotic, who has no answers, who really exposed how badly he has been impacted by having the power he's had. And I don't think it'll hurt him with his supporters, but it's not going to help him anywhere that he is bleeding votes right now, particularly among women, particularly in the suburbs, and particularly with older Americans that know this isn't the way we do this in our country.
Hey, James, is it comforting or disquieting to know that this president was prepped? He always hates people to know that work or a challenge goes into anything, that anything is new to him. I'm afraid this was the prep to just let it fly.
Well, what was interesting is he just chased the television audience away. I mean, after 25 minutes of this, it literally was unwatchable, and he's 7 to 9 points down. He's not even trying to win the election.
So for me, the only thing I was really watching from a professional standpoint was, what did Donald Trump do to move up? What did Donald Trump do to change votes in his direction? I didn't see a single moment where that happened. But this is a debate that defies the tools that we normally bring to it at this hour. Brian, in the last hour, Rachel said that she feels that this debate needs something other than fact-checking, but she wasn't sure what it is.
And the other guy sounds like he knows how to do this job. And that's really what I think Joe Biden wanted to do. I think he wanted people to see him as the president. And I think he did that tonight. I think he's the one who looked presidential tonight. The other one just looked like a joke.
James Carville, I guess, I'm looking through my notes, as is every journalist in the country right now, trying to pick out discussion points that were made. I heard from a lot of people, too. Most of them were chiefly scared when the president took a pass on supremacist groups, when his message to the Proud Boys and their ilk was stand down, but stand by.
I would hate to accumulate the cumulative years of experience that this panel has. You and the 4 members of the panel, all of us have seen a lot in our lives. We're totally ill-equipped to comment on something like this because there's nothing in history that informs us to what we just saw. If you look just the number of times, Chris Wallace should get combat pay. If you just look at the number of times that he had to chastise Trump, I can't count it in the back of my mind. I mean, this event, nothing like this has ever happened in politics, in presidential politics.
Hey, Lawrence, since you're my television brother on this panel, two things. Can that serious discussion be had? Should the next two debates go on as scheduled?
The Presidential Debate Commission is always decidedly behind the times, and they, I'm sure, will stick to their catechism on this, which absolutely does not work. Twitter was filled with suggestions that the next moderator is going to have to be able to turn off the microphone for 2 minutes of the speaker whose turn it is to listen, because it's the only way for that to happen. And of course, Donald Trump being the biggest violator of that. Now, these rules have all been agreed to by both parties. As we all know, there's a very intense negotiation about the rules. And so turning off the microphones is something the Presidential Debate Commission is not allowed to do without the agreement of both parties. The Trump side will never agree to that because that's his entire debate strategy, is to speak while Joe Biden is speaking. There is no other debate strategy, you know, if we can call it a debate strategy. I do think, Brian, that going forward tomorrow night and not just through this week, but through history, probably the biggest headline that will live through history of this debate is the President of the United States refusing repeatedly to take a stand against white supremacists. Each moderator must ask that question again, and ask that question more than once in each one of these debates of Donald Trump. It can't be allowed to end the way it ended tonight. And if Donald Trump is going to go through every one of these debates refusing to take a stand against white supremacy, that is something we have to get indelibly etched in the history of these debates.
Eugene, do you concur with Mr. O'Donnell?
I absolutely concur that that was the, you know, in a night where, as James said, we've never seen anything like this. So you know, don't ask us. But I do think that failure to just say I condemn white supremacy and white militia groups who foment violence in these situations. Just the refusal just to say that was absolutely stunning. About Chris Wallace, who I think did try his best, but it clearly lost control because the president insisted on speaking over him as well as speaking over Biden, and just wanted to make a mess of it. But one mistake I think he did make, I just don't think the integrity of the election was actually a proper topic for an entire section of the debate. I think that framing plays into President Trump's narrative of how the election somehow is automatically going to be rigged, or it's going to be a mess, and it's all going to have to be litigated. I certainly would have wished he had either framed that a different way or not done an entire section on that, because I think it gave too much credence to President Trump's nonsense.
That's a great point. I'm going to use it to inform questions to subsequent guests during our coverage. With our thanks to friends of this broadcast, Senator Claire McCaskill, James Carville, Lawrence O'Donnell, Eugene Robinson. Just ahead, two political insiders on what was accomplished, if anything at all, on that stage in Cleveland, Ohio tonight as our special edition of the 11th Hour continues.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is,
the question Supreme Court justice, radical left. Will you? Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think we've ended this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have not going to give a list. We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
So he needs to take ownership for his own inaction.
Let's talk about masks, Doctor. The president mocked his opponent for wearing one out of an abundance of caution. He did not give a full-throated endorsement of masks, and he keeps wanting to frame it as if there was debate or dissent over masks, as if people were saying, no, don't wear one. I have to say, one thing his Surgeon General will never live down was early on. His first public utterance on television about this virus was about the president's stamina and virility, and he is the one who said he didn't think people needed masks. He later admitted that was because he was worried about hoarding and worried about getting masks to people like you on the front lines who need it. But the time has come to be full-throated in the endorsement of mask wearing, because the math is right there. We know how many lives it will and is saving.
And you've got this other guy over there just yabbing about something that doesn't even make any sense. When you are running to be president of the United States, and when you're running to represent the people, you have to be accountable to them. And Joe Biden is going to show up, and he's going to answer the people's questions in Miami. He's going to take questions from voters across the state of Florida and about the most pressing issues facing them. Now, Donald Trump, we don't know what he's going to do. I hope he's not going to belittle and berate voters in Florida. But you know what? You never know, Brian. But Joe Biden will be there to show you exactly what you can get post-November 3rd if folks go to the polls and elect him as the next president of the United States.
Fair enough. Good to see you again. Simone Sanders with the Biden campaign outside the venue tonight. Thank you very much for joining us.